a full-scale reset with Mike Vrabel. Should the Patriots do it? We'll answer that question here on Patscast.
Vrabel and Mayo, two names in the fight. Patriots searching to make it right. We heard the
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. This is such a great time of the year. The NFL season is almost over. We're almost to the off season, and we can no longer talk about this horrendous football team that we've seen on display week after week that just seems to be getting worse, and maybe offer the Patriots fans out there a glimmer of hope beyond Drake May and Christian Gonzalez, where all the hope really lies at this point and their long-term futures with the New England Patriots. But we could see some coaching changes this offseason. Right now, the consensus still seems to be that Jerod Mayo will return as the Patriots head coach, but Tommy Curran on NBC Sports Boston's Early Edition yesterday said Mike Vrabel would be interested in being the head coach for the New England Patriots. Now, this wasn't like some long report, some big story that he wrote. It's something that he said very quickly while still acknowledging it probably will still be with Jerod Mayo, but it's worth noting this isn't something that Tom Curran wouldn't just say. Like, he has a very close relationship with Jerod Mayo. The two were co-hosts together at NBC Sports Boston for at least the season. I think they may have done it for a couple of years. Curran was way ahead of everyone on the Mayo prediction as the next Patriots head coach long before Bill Belichick was ultimately fired by Robert Kraft. He's not going to say this about Vrabel unless there's at least some potential smoke happening there. And look, it's fun to think about, right? I mean, Mike Vrabel, for a guy that's looking for a job, is a pretty good NFL head coach. And there's only a few minor red flags there from his final days at Tennessee. But if that job were to come available, Mike Vrabel would probably be the closest thing to a sure thing as you're going to get. Even with Ben Johnson, the offensive genius, if he were to come in New England and be the next head coach, he would be another rookie head coach. There's a lot of uncertainty there. You know you're getting someone that's been able to run an organization with Mike Vrabel. Again, right now, as bad as the Patriots look last week and the week before and the week before that, Jerod Mayo is probably still going to be the head coach next season. There just might be some minor tweaks to the coaching staff. Again, Tommy Curran reiterated that when he threw this out there on Early Edition. Not to mention, look, the Krafts were patient with Bill Parcells. They were patient with Bill Belichick. Both got off to rough starts their first years as head coach in New England. Jerod Mayo is also the youngest coach in the league with one of the worst rosters in the league. We all expected this to be a bad team. Probably not fair to fire him. Like, I understand the argument there, but head coaches typically don't get fired after a bad first season for a number of reasons. One, they tend to be part of rebuilds. Teams are always patient with first-year head coaches, especially guys that have never done this before, like Jerod Mayo. Often there's something encouraging coming out of the season. The Pats closed the season on a winning streak with Bill Parcells his first year after a rough start. We remember the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell. I think they only won 1 or 2 games his first year as head coach, but they became a real competitor at the end of the season, which ultimately led to them being the Super Bowl contender that they are today. For the Patriots right now, there isn't anything encouraging about what's happening beyond the quarterback play of Drake May, which really should be credited to offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt and not Jerod Mayo. Jerod Mayo would be the first to admit that. He even called Alex Van Pelt the other day, once again, the offensive head coach. The defense is regressing under Jerod Mayo, a defensive-minded head coach, a guy who played defense for the New England Patriots. And the team seems less buttoned up, more out of position. They're not playing fundamental football as much as Jerod Mayo stresses fundamental football in his post-game press conferences. Being buttoned up, being in the right position, tackling basic fundamental football. Patriots have gotten worse in all of those areas, especially on the defensive side of the football as the season has gone on. Look, Robert and Jonathan Kraft, they're going to have to really weigh the calculation of the probability Jerod Mayo underperforms again next season, because right now, I think it's far more likely than not they will still be a bad football team. Even if Elliott Wolf, Matt Groh, and company have a strong offseason, Is there any reason to be optimistic in Jerod Mayo? Like, right now, is there anything where you're saying, yeah, they have a bad roster, but they're getting better here, here, and here? You could say that about Drake May. You could say that about Antonio Gibson, the tight ends, the offense. But again, most of that credit's going to go to Alex Van Pelt. And perhaps that's why Jerod Mayo almost subconsciously threw him under the bus on Sunday when he was asked about the decision not to sneak it with Drake May on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. And he told the reporter, "You said it, not me." And then he corrected himself, walked himself back again the following Monday, as we've seen with a lot of things with Jerod Mayo. But this is the one that really has stuck. And look, if you bring Jerod Mayo back and you say, all right, we're going to make some coaching changes at offensive coordinator, at defensive coordinator. This was a point that Burt Breer made after the game on Sunday. Who are you going to attract to fill those roles? Jerod Mayo's already going to be considered a head coach on the hot seat. So you're going to bring in a new defensive coordinator who knows, like, hey, if this team underperforms, like, they're going to fire the head coach and the entire coaching staff's going to go with him. Like, you're not going to be able to attract someone to fill DeMarcus Covington's role because they think Jerod Mayo might throw their coordinator under the bus, or if they replace Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator. Who's going to fill that role, knowing Jerod Mayo is more likely than not gone in a year? And then you're wasting 2 years of Drake May's rookie contract at a time when you have all of this salary cap space to work with. Right now, the Patriots, far and away, have the most cap space heading into next offseason. This is an attractive job if it's the head coaching job. If it's coaching under Jerod Mayo, people think it's a one-and-done gig as of right now. But you have a vacancy there at head coach. You have a quarterback of the future in Drake May, who did so much with less, will continue to do so much with less, with a roster with by far the worst offensive line, the worst set of tackles in the entire NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. And you have $150+ million in cap space. That's going to be an attractive job. And I'm sorry, I know we sit there and talk about how the Patriots have a bad roster. It's not like they don't have any talent. Wide receiver could be better. Offensive line certainly could be better. But they certainly have one of the best tight end duos in the league. They have arguably the best cornerback. Certainly a top 5 guy, Christian Gonzalez is now, after what he did against Marvin Harrison Jr. last week. They have other good DBs out there. Kyle Duggar having his worst career season, but he's a guy with talent. They have good pass rushers out there that can't seem to get to the quarterback. There's plenty of talent, especially on the defensive side of the football, for this team to be playing better than they currently are. I think this is a very attractive job, and it's not just because of the cap space and Drake May. I think there's some pieces there that a lot of head coaches might be drawn to, and they just say, look, I can work with this defense. We can have a good offseason. Maybe add a weapon at the receiver spot, fill out this offensive line, and I can work with this team, and in a couple years, we could be a real contender. I think a guy like Mike Vrabel, who we're talking about here in this podcast, or even Ben Johnson is going to be drawn to that, but that's only if there is a head coaching vacancy. But look, if you wait another year with Jerod Mayo and you don't think it's going to work out, then you might have to just pull off the Band-Aid now. I mean, that's just the truth. And the chance of bringing in a highly sought-after head coach next season diminishes if they wait another year with Jerod Mayo and ultimately let him go. I mean, how interested are teams going to be with the second year of Drake May if he's coached by Jerod Mayo? They fire him. Patriots use up a large chunk of their cap space this next coming offseason. They have another year to be considered one of the most dysfunctional organizations in the NFL. The job's going to be less attractive, and you're not going to bring in a guy like Mike Vrabel, a top 2 candidate with Ben Johnson. The job's more attractive to him because he's a Patriots Hall of Famer. He has connections to the organization that a guy like Ben Johnson or a candidate next year might not have. So one more year, Patriots are seen as a dysfunctional organization. They have less cap space after Elliott Wolf and Matt Groh make acquisitions this offseason. Drake May, maybe he has a better second year than he does a rookie year, but it's less attractive than saying, wow, look at what this rookie did with this roster, with this lack of weapons. It's less attractive after year 2 of his rookie contract. Look, maybe Jerod Mayo has a bright future, but like I said, Vrabel would be as close to a sure thing as you're going to find. And many consider him a top 10, maybe even top 5 NFL coach. He won NFL Coach of the Year in 2021. Remember, the Titans were the team under Mike Vrabel that gave the knockout punch to Tom Brady's career in New England. They beat him on the road, wild card game in Foxborough. Brady's last game, threw a pick six, made it to the AFC Championship game that year. A couple years later, that's when he won Coach of the Year. He did all of this, by the way, with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So he clearly can coach other positions, particularly the defensive side of the football. Imagine what he could do with a real quarterback like Drake May. And like I said, there aren't really any serious red flags coming out of Tennessee. Like, the firing wasn't that scandalous. Apparently, there were some differences with Mike Vrabel and the general manager, Rand Carthon, but I guess the real story was Mike Vrabel and ownership, and the owner was pissed that Vrabel, getting all buddy-buddy with Robert Kraft, wearing the red jacket, sitting in the owner's box on a bye week for the Titans after he was inducted in the Patriots Hall of Fame. That left a bad taste in his mouth, so that was part of the reason I guess he was let go. And yeah, his last season wasn't great. He had a 6-11 record in Tennessee, but I'd take 6-11 with a bad quarterback and Mike Vrabel over 3-14, which is what the Patriots are probably going to do this year with a real quarterback. And yeah, I mean, they have the Bills twice and the Chargers once. Patriots are probably going to finish 3-14 this season. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's more there to Mike Vrabel's firing than I laid out, but this feels kind of like, and I hope I'm right about this, because you could probably tell I'm leaning toward doing a full reset here with Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson, but ideally with Mike Vrabel and actually starting over. But if that's what actually happens here, this reminds me of the Bobby Valentine year with the Red Sox. They let go of, I think it was Terry Francona, and then they brought in Bobby Valentine for a year. The season was a complete disaster, cultural breakdown throughout the entire organization. And then there was John Farrell, who kind of failed as the manager with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Red Sox brought him in, and they ended up winning World Series a couple seasons later. Now, John Farrell ultimately didn't work out with the Red Sox as manager, but that is kind of a similar scenario because John Farrell was the pitching coach with the Red Sox before he was the manager of the Blue Jays. I see a similar scenario here. Patriots go with Jerod Mayo. They say, yeah, he's too inexperienced, and we don't like the direction this team is going. Let's go with Mike Vrabel, a guy who's been involved with the organization, a Patriots Hall of Famer. We'll fill the spot with him, and at least that will bring some stability here. So we're back to a 500 football team. I think that's what it is. It's very similar to the Bobby Valentine, John Farrell situation. That is if the Krafts are willing to move on from Jerod Mayo. But look, it's not going to happen, right, if the Patriots actually look competitive these last three games. They can finish 3-14, and if they're competitive in at least one of the games against the Bills and against the Chargers, like, Jerod Mayo's not going anywhere. But that's the bar, right? It's a very low bar, but if Mayo does not exceed that, this will probably become a reality. And the Krafts might just have to bite the bullet on this one, because this hurts the ego a little bit. And from everything I've heard, it seems like Jonathan Kraft is more open to this than Robert Kraft, who leads with emotion a little bit more than Jonathan Kraft. But it'd be tough, but they would have to acknowledge that it didn't work with the inexperienced players coach, as Drake May called him yesterday. And as I've said on the podcast, and I said this when the Patriots hired Jerod Mayo as head coach, right now there's a trend in the NFL of bringing in friendly players coaches instead of the Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Bill Parcells, drill sergeant type coach. And when one doesn't work out, the team goes to the polar opposite and goes with the other. And I think that's what would happen here. The Patriots would be acknowledging it didn't work with the players coach. We're going to go back to the drill sergeant coach, which Mike Vrabel certainly is. All right? He is a tough head coach. He might be tougher than Belichick. Very short, very curt with the media, but then he'll hit back where it hurts. And, you know, he's tough on his players. So he would be more of a drill sergeant coach than your typical NFL coach today. And look, I think that's the right thing to do. Patriots are an organization. If you want to have fun, go to Miami. If you want to take football seriously, go to New England. That's always been the motto. Nobody will take New England seriously otherwise. This is not Foxborough, Massachusetts is not a fun, player-friendly destination. It's like Green Bay. It's like Buffalo. You're going to play out in the elements. We want tough, buttoned-up football players. I don't care if you have the friendliest coach in the whole world. That has to be the message, is that we want tough football players here because you're not going to get anyone else, right? And it's never going to be Miami. It's never going to be Houston. It's never going to be Los Angeles. It's Foxborough, Massachusetts. You have to attract the type of player that is going to be buttoned up. And that's why a drill sergeant head coach really makes a lot more sense. Not to mention, with Mike Vrabel, we've heard some rumors about this, that there are links with him and Josh McDaniels. One of the big rumors is that the Jets are heavily interested in Mike Vrabel. Look, every team's going to be interested in Mike Vrabel, but the last thing that I want to see happen is Mike Vrabel teaming up with Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator with the New York Jets and having to play them twice a season. Then you have to go to Miami, which is always a tough place to play. Buffalo, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. And now the Jets are a threat because they have Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels as your coach, and they're going to be able to pick you apart regardless of how good your team is. I think the move is worth making just to prevent that from happening all alone. And then maybe you can bring Josh McDaniels to New England. Heck, why not? You know, he would be a great offensive coordinator for Jerod Mayo. He'll coach based on the personnel that he has, not based on his philosophy or his offensive ideology or trying to pigeonhole a West Coast offense with a bunch of power run players. Like, he's going to play to the strengths of the players on the field. And look, if you want to keep Alex Van Pelt, I'm fine with that, right? Like, I don't love the cautious play calling. Should have snuck it with Jerod Mayo on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 the other day, or done something different other than pounded up the middle, which hasn't really worked all season. But he's been arguably the best coach on the staff. He's done it with Jerod Mayo's development. The offense is the lone unit that is improving this season. Maybe special teams has improved, but that was a pretty low bar from last year. But the offense is getting better, and Alex Van Pelt deserves a ton of credit for that. You could keep him as offensive coordinator and bring in Mike Vrabel as the head coach. But I'd also want my head coach to be empowered to make those decisions. So if Vrabel is happy with Van Pelt, I would be okay with that. I know he wouldn't be happy, though, with DeMarcus Covington and this defensive staff based on how this season has gone. But either way, the most important thing is I want Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, the Patriots organization to just show some conviction in this decision. Either stick with the plan with Jerod Mayo, say this was the plan, we knew this would be a bumpy ride, there were a lot of setbacks this year, but this was always a long-term plan with Jerod Mayo, or you actually do a full-scale reset. And yeah, maybe bringing in Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels isn't a full-scale reset, but let them have the power, or at least let Mike Vrabel have the power to make the decisions for his coaching staff. But I'm talking more about the front office, right? Like, if the biggest critique of Bill Belichick and the reason why he got fired from the Patriots is that he's still a great head coach, but he was a terrible general manager, then why did you keep Elliott Wolf and Matt Groh, his top 2 advisors, in the front office? You're just keeping Bill Belichick's tentacles all over that organization and then throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Like, you either move on from Belichick or you don't. None of these half measures that we saw this past offseason. I think if you're going to have a vacancy at the head coach position and bring in a guy like Mike Vrabel or bring in a Ben Johnson, then you have to reset altogether. You have all the cap space in the world, probably going to have a top 3, maybe even the number 1 or number 2 draft pick. Make it an attractive destination. Be willing to spend money for the best head coach available and the best general manager available, and let them be empowered to make decisions. There's also, they've gone way overboard with all this collaboration stuff. Collaboration is nice. It sounds fluffy. It sounds great in corporate board meetings, but the buck has to stop with someone. And the NFL is always going to be far more collaborative now than it used to be, but you need to have people that are empowered to make those decisions, and hopefully they would let Mike Vrabel do that if he were to come in as head coach. But curious to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Would you like to see Mike Vrabel be the next Patriots head coach? Would you like them to stick to the plan with Jerod Mayo and see how it plays out? What is the thing that they should do that puts Jerod Mayo in this offense in the best position going forward? Curious to hear from you in the comments below. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video, Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we'll see you very soon.
Vrabel and Mayo, two names in the fight. Patriots searching to make it right. We heard the scoop, the smoke in the air. Is Vrabel the answer to a Patriots prayer? The defense is slipping, fundamentals gone. Drake May needs guidance to carry us on. Mayo's learning, but can he lead? Or is Vrabel the reset the Patriots need? Pat's cast where the rumors ignite, breaking it down under Foxborough lights. Pat's cast, the vision is clear. A total reset could be drawing near. A Pat's Hall of Famer, Coach of the Year. He's won with less, he's got no fear. Mayo's young, the potential is there, but the roster's weak and the season's bare. The Krafts must decide, do they stay the course or bring in Vrabel to change the force? Josh McDaniels in the wings, could he return? With him and Mayo, the offense could burn. Pat's cast, the crossroads are here. Will it be Vrabel who steers the gear? Pat's cast, the fans hold their breath, waiting for moves that'll banish the mess. Reset the culture, rebuild the pride. The Patriots motto, hard work, no side. If you want fun, head to Miami's shore. But in New England, football's the core. Pat's cast, where legends collide. Vrabel or Mayo, who's by our side? Pat's cast, the story unfolds. A reset for the Patriots, bold and cold. Pat's cast, the future's bright. Tune in weekly, we'll shed the light. Pat's cast, where